The 2024 WNBA playoffs were the most watched and anticipated playoffs in the last 2 decades. The prevailing narrative of the offseason going into the new year was that of super teams. The Las Vegas Aces, after winning back-to-back titles the previous 2 seasons with their 3 number 1 overall picks, were accurately labeled as such. Others like the New York Liberty took a different approach. While Vegas is primarily known for their homegrown talent, New York opted to acquire all-star players from other teams instead. Aside from Sabrina Ionescu, every other member of the New York starting 4.5 were acquired from other teams. Just in 2023 alone, New York acquired former MVP Jonquel Jones of the Connecticut Sun, 2-time champion Breanna Stewart of the Seattle Storm, and legendary point guard Courtney Vandersloot of the Chicago Sky. In their first year together as a collective, the New York Liberty made it to the finals. This rapid success in a single season of basketball cemented New York as the primary challenger to the championship throne, and undoubtedly a super team. While the top 2 teams were a lock, the remaining 6 other playoff slots were more or less up in the air. First of all, let's talk about who actually made the playoffs. The Atlanta Dream. Atlanta stumbled their way into the 8 seed after underperforming all year. The teams they were competing with couldn't stop losing by the end of the season, and thus the spot had to go to someone. I am a bit sad Atlanta made the cut. Personally, I really wanted to see Chicago and Reese in the first round, but alas, the Phoenix Mercury. Phoenix ended the year as the 7th seed. While Taurasi is old, she's still Taurasi. You expect more from a team with the GOAT Brittany Griner, Kalia Copper, and Natasha Cloud than just the 7th seed. Unlike Atlanta, Phoenix started off relatively hot and then slowly day by day fell down in the standings. I think that has less to do with them falling and more to do with other teams rising, as we'll talk about pretty soon. Now, the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Fever have had an incredible season. While they struggled early on, they were able to turn things around after the Olympic break, and finished as the 6th seed. For a team that hadn't been to the playoffs since 2016, getting the 6th seed ain't too shabby. Also, Clark won Rookie of the Year unanimously, so that's pretty cool. Wait, what? What do you mean it wasn't unanimous? One person voted for Reese? What? Look, I get some particularly annoying Caitlin stans that discredit everyone else and just prop her up can be, well, annoying. But like, are we for real? No disrespect to Reese. I'm a fan of your game, but like, there is no contest here. This rookie is strictly better in pretty much every stat than Reese, and her team made the playoffs. Respectfully, there's no room for debate here. The Seattle Storm. The Storm saw that New York took Breanna Stewart away from them, and in response said, I'm going to build my own super team. While certainly an upgrade, the squad ended up being a little less than super, at least this year. The Las Vegas Aces. Despite being, in my mind, one of the 2 best teams, the Aces had a rough year by their standards, and ended as the 4th seed. With Parker retiring, other players were expected to carry the weight of that burden. Combine that with the fact that Chelsea Gray was still very much coming off her injury from last playoffs, and the team just didn't ever really look whole during the regular season. Despite this, A'ja Wilson secured the MVP by unanimous vote, marking her 3rd MVP, tying her with the most MVPs ever and putting her alongside some very good company. The Connecticut Sun. The Sun seem to always overperform my expectations. I don't know if that means they keep getting better or I just need to stop doubting them, but either way they had a great year. They led the league in defensive rating, and if you ever watched one of their games, it sure looked like it. They made the mid-season trade to acquire Marina Mabrey. This was such a good move. She fits in perfectly and gives the Sun what they needed the most: shooting. Unfortunately for the Sun, at the end of the year, the Fever poached their coach. Yikes. The Minnesota Lynx. No team has been as big a surprise to me as the Minnesota Lynx. Collier's continued improvement has been a spectacle to watch. Kayla McBride just had one of her best seasons ever, and Courtney Williams is exactly what this team needed. Everyone on the Lynx knows their role and plays it to a T. Like Connecticut, they are a defensive monster. I thought this team would get better, but the Lynx snatching the 2 seed was not on my bingo card this year. We're so close to getting a bingo. You can get us there by subscribing to the channel. But like, only if you want. I can't make you subscribe. Anyway, back to it. The New York Liberty. The Liberty were the favorite to win it all. They made it to the finals last year and then proceeded to have an even better regular season. On the whole, their starters improved, and they hit big on their draft pick this year. They selected Leonie Fibish, who as a rookie is shooting 43% from 3. New York got even better this year, Well, it seems the Aces got worse. They earned the 1 seed and thus retained a permanent home court advantage in the playoffs. Now, seeding isn't always everything. However, this year, the first round was all chalk. Every single first round series ended in the higher team sweeping the lower one. While it's not surprising these teams won, it is surprising that Seattle and Indiana didn't even manage to take a game. The format of the first round does mean that the first 2 games happen at the higher seed's home court. This is a fairly reasonable effort to reduce travel costs, but many fans felt cheated. In the NBA, every playoff team gets at least 2 games at home, so to not even get one was not what new fans were hoping for. While this could have turned purely into a WNBA sucks campaign as the internet likes to do, and don't get me wrong, there was some of that, but what it really did was create public pressure, instigated by many of the new Fever fans who felt they deserved at least 1 game at home in the playoffs. And what do you know? Public pressure works, and the league decided that going forward, the first round would be a 1-1-1 format, where the court alternates between teams. Also, the finals going forward will now be best of 7. Let's go! Did I not call it? Did I not call it? Play the tape! The league has slowly increased both the amount of regular season and playoff games as the years have gone on, so maybe we'll get best of 7 series in the future. There's a lot to cover heading into the next season, so let's quickly summarize how the playoffs went. As mentioned previously, all the teams that were supposed to win round 1 did. You can be mad at the format, you can be mad at the refs if you want, but at the end of the day, these teams were simply better than their opponents, and I don't want to hear any excuses. Next, there was Connecticut versus Minnesota, a defensive grind of a series that went down to a somewhat anticlimactic Game 5, because the Sun forgot how to play basketball in the first 2 quarters, and by the time they figured it out, it was much too late. I must say though, that even when the teams are not named the Indiana Fever, you can absolutely tell a difference this year from last year. The crowds this year were electric. Every time Courtney Williams made a 3, the nearly fully packed stadium of Lynx fans were about ready to tear the roof off the place. Alright, enough beating around the bush. We have to talk about the unfortunate demise of my Las Vegas Aces. Look, you can't go down 0-2 versus New York. You just can't do that. And that's exactly what the Aces did. I'd be lying if I said Game 3 didn't give me a little bit of hope, but even in the event of a potential reverse sweep, we'd have to play Game 5 in New York, and we just weren't winning that one. But the Aces decided that we don't even need to worry about that, because there is no Game 5. Decided to call it a night, let everyone go home early, and lose in Game 4 instead. Now to be fair, there were a lot of things not going our way this year. From Jackie Young's bizarre shooting slump to Chelsea Gray's injury to the disease that is no Candace Parker-itis, it just never really materialized, and I think we all knew, after losing Game 1 to New York, that it was kinda over. And normally I'm not so quick to judge, but I'm about ready to fire Kia Stokes. She was never a great shooter, but last year she at least made enough threes that other teams had to not completely ignore her. Now they barely lift a finger. And it's not like she's a threat inside either. Now look, we didn't originally put her in the lineup for her shooting. We wanted her rebounding, and that's what she does. But she's also gotten worse in that department. She rebounds less, she plays worse defense than she used to, she shoots less, and a lot fewer of the shots she does decide to shoot go in. I don't know if it's a mental thing or what, but I'm not used to losing and need someone to blame. Hell, let's give the starting spot to Gustafson. Who knows? I don't. Sorry, Kia Stokes. I'm lashing out a bit. It's just tough when you have such high expectations and don't really even get close to them. I'm sure it sucks way more if you're an actual player, but sometimes, as a fan, you just need to get it out of your system and vent a bit. This left us with an unexpected but much appreciated Minnesota-New York finals. This Lynx series was even better than the last. High-octane action from the favorites and the underdogs.
Seconds remaining in the 4th quarter of Game 3. 4 seconds. Ionescu will heave and hit! And hit! Sabrina Ionescu with the biggest shot in Liberty history!
It came down to the wire in a close Game 5. I loved this series. Some people had problems with the officiating, and while I personally don't think this game-winning foul is a foul, it's just as much of a foul as all the other ones they were calling all game. So while I didn't love this, the refs were at least consistent, and that's really all you can ask for. And look, I get the game may have not gone the way some people wanted, but there's no need to get vile. Is what it is. I'm happy New York finally got theirs, but yeah, I wanted the Lynx to win too. Oh well. And with that, the season came to a close. But wait one moment, what's that? The Golden State Valkyries are a brand new team entering the WNBA this very next season. A new team needs players, and they acquire these players through an expansion draft. In this year's expansion draft, teams were allowed to protect 6 of their players from being drafted, and then, from the remaining pool of players that were not protected, the Valkyries were able to take 1 player from every team. They were also given the 5th pick in this upcoming draft. It's an exciting time for the league to expand, and the expansion draft already happened, so we have a pretty good idea of what their roster will look like going into the year. Good thing they didn't take anyone important from the Aces. I'm beyond upset. I'm currently seething. Aces Nation in shambles right now. That's it. We're done. We're never winning another game again. Pack it up. I am very sad, and in all seriousness, I'm genuinely very sad that they took Kate Martin, who was one of our few bright spots this year, and I just need a minute before I hype myself up about the Aces. I just need a minute. In other news, the Fever stole perhaps the second best coach in the league from the Suns. I think the Fever are going to be very good next year. No first round exits this time. I wouldn't go as far as to say they'd be contending. I still put them a tier below that, but they're going to get pretty close at the very least. Future August here. A million different trades have happened as I'm making this video, and I'm gonna quickly just tell you if the teams got better or worse, because I do not have the time, and that is probably gonna be its own video. As sad as it makes me, Las Vegas probably stayed about the same. I want to say Phoenix got a little better, but losing that chemistry with Taurasi and Griner is definitely gonna hurt a bit at first. Speaking of Griner, I have no idea what the fuck Atlanta's doing, and I don't think they do either. The Indiana Fever are really starting to scare me, man. They have Bonner now. They even took Colson. Colson's not like a great player for the Aces, but it does make me sad, and I don't know. Anyway, back to past August. There's a lot of uncertainty going into this upcoming season, but New York's certainly the favorite, and Minnesota's got something to prove with that chip on their shoulder. So make sure you stay tuned. The season doesn't start until May 16th. The draft is much sooner, coming up this April 14th, but we've still got a ways to go. On the note of the draft, the Dallas Wings secured the number 1 pick, which will almost certainly end up being Paige Bueckers. I'm very excited for a debut and hope that we can get a real good rivalry going here. And that's about it. Everything you need to know to be up to date going into next season. Hey you, that's the end of the video, but wait just 1 second. You there, lean in closer. There's a lot of time between now and the start of the season, and I get that I don't post videos that frequently, but I've got some video ideas cooking up about some shows, games, and other things I enjoy. While a bit random and not very basketball connected, I still want to make these videos at some point, and I thought during the lead up to the next season would be a good time to experiment with this. All this to say, I plan on making the next video about my favorite episode from The Walking Dead, a TV show I'm very nostalgic for. I get that may not be everyone's cup of tea, and it won't come out, as with all my videos, for a while, but I hope when it does, you give it a chance. That's all I have to say, okay, bye!